Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
Well, we've made it all the way to February the 6th, and one of the things that we're going to learn from our reading today is quite a few things, but just to point out a few points of emphasis, we see first this poem or song of Moses. And it's important for us to just remember that all the movement and emphasis of the text is centered on God's action. We've seen how God delivered his people with an outstretched arm. We've seen God in the Exodus concerned. He's connected. He's listening. He's aware. So all of those textual concerns that we've been looking at have all led to this expression here, where Moses says, "He will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously." Look at all of this, how this is what God has done. Your right hand has done this. You blew with your wind, and the sea covered them. All leading to this question for us to consider at verse 11. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You stretched out your hand, your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You have led in your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them by your strength to your holy abode. The peoples have heard, they trembled. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Verse 17 again, you will do this. You will bring them in and plant them on your mountain, the place, O Lord, which you have made for your abode, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. And of course, just to point out again for you, and we have this in verse 22, we have 3 days mentioned here, not to forget the fact that 3 days is mentioned. But at verse 24, just something for you to point out. Verse 24, or something to point out for you, rather. Verse 24, we see this pattern of grumbling continuing. The people are grumbling against Moses, saying, "What on earth shall we drink?" And he cried to the Lord. Now, look at the patience of the Lord. He cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log, and he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. And so here's God providing, even though they have this pattern of grumbling. It's a pattern that we'll need to pay attention to. It's a pattern that we'll be able to see marked time and time again. But look at God reveals himself in another name. He says this in verse 26, "I am the Lord, your healer," and he is that even to this day. And just to look and see as we continue going down through the text, we see God providing manna for the people, this bread from heaven as he feeds them. And I love the description at verse 31. I'm not a baker, and so I'm a brown. I'm not a baker, and so I don't know. This description that the Bible gives us really doesn't tell me much. Maybe it tells you something. Maybe I should ask some of my Mennonite friends down at a particular bakery in Mississippi. I bet they know what it means. But look at verse 31. You want to know what manna is? Well, here's a description for you. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. But here's what we know. The people got tired of the Lord's provision. Look into Matthew just for a moment as we close our time together. Look again, just to point out, I've started to write the number 3 in my Bible as we're going through it, and I intend to keep that pattern. 3 is, or he will be crucified on the 3rd day, so we see the 3rd day repeated and emphasized. But look at the remedy for grumbling. We have in Matthew chapter 20, the remedy for grumbling. Jesus called them and said to them, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be among you. Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." And just to point out another truth for you here, look at how the blind men, look at these 2 blind men, they call him Son of David. Now that's a title. They say that twice in Matthew chapter 20. But look on into chapter 21. Look how the crowds greet him. They say in verse 9, Hosanna to the Son of David. Now we're intended to make that connection, and hopefully you saw that connection. But look what happens at verse 10. When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up and said, Who is this? Now we know who this is. Matthew's told us. The crowds have told us. The blind men have told us. Matthew told us back in the very beginning. This is Jesus, the Son of David. What a title. What an implication. One that we get to explore as we encounter the Bible, the way that God tells his story through history, through his people. He patterned his Son after Israel, and we'll need to keep that in mind. But we've been looking today in our readings at manna, as well as this drinking of the cup of God's wrath. And let's just close our time together by looking and reading out loud Psalm chapter 34 and verse 8. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him.